Welcome in. It's really fantastic to have you joining us today
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
because we are looking at a date that, honestly, it has already been circled in thick red marker in the sports history books. I'm talking about March 8th, 2026.
A truly monumental day.
Right. And for today's deep dive, we have a towering stack of source material sitting right in front of us. We are working our way through a comprehensive preview, a highly detailed tactical analysis, and a highlight dossier, all of it centered on the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2026 final.
It is a profoundly dense collection of documents, almost overwhelming when you first dive in.
Yeah, no kidding.
When you start sifting through these reports, you realize pretty quickly this wasn't just a championship game. The sources map out this intricate web of tactical maneuvers, immense historical baggage, and an atmosphere that is almost difficult to put into words.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our goal for this deep dive is basically to serve as your guide through this massive mountain of cricket data. We want to decode the tactical chess match, explore the staggering stakes, and really isolate the defining moments of this colossal collision between India and New Zealand.
Exactly.
Because whether you are a lifelong follower of the sport or someone just trying to, grasp the cultural magnitude of this event, understanding the mechanics behind this match reveals a totally fascinating story about human pressure.
And to truly understand that pressure, I want you to visualize the physical space where this played out. We are talking about the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad.
Right, just massive.
I want you to imagine the most high-stakes presentation or performance of your own life. Now, instead of a quiet boardroom, imagine delivering that performance in the center of an arena, holding over 130,000 screaming fans.
That number is it's insane.
It is the largest cricket venue on the planet. The sources describe a sea of humanity where the noise is so concentrated it physically vibrates in your chest.
Just visualizing an audience of 130,000 people is staggering. I mean, that is the population of an entire mid-sized city packed into a single bowl, scrutinizing your every movement.
And that architecture brings a very heavy psychological weight. The data notes that Ahmedabad has historically been a fortress for the Indian national team.
Yeah, they usually dominate there.
They do, but there is a profound shadow hanging over that specific stadium. This is the exact site of India's most devastating modern heartbreak. It is the very ground where they lost the 2023 ODI World Cup Final to Australia.
Wow, right. The 2023 final.
Think about the mental fortitude required to walk back out onto that specific grass under those specific lights, knowing the ghosts of that 2023 defeat are quite literally beneath your feet.
That context changes everything. They weren't just playing New Zealand, they were playing their own recent history.
Spot on.
The documents emphasize that Suryakumar Yadav's Indian team was carrying the expectations of 1.4 billion people.
Which is a number you can barely wrap your head around.
Exactly. And beyond that, they were chasing a trifecta of historic firsts. They were attempting to become the first team to successfully defend a T20 World Cup title.
Right.
They were trying to be the first to win it on their home soil, and they were aiming to secure a record third separate title.
That is an immense burden to carry to the crease. But to grasp the full dynamic of this final, we have to examine the opposition too. Mitchell Santner's New Zealand squad brought their own narrative of desperation to Ahmedabad.
They definitely had something to prove.
They did. The analysts highlight something called their white ball finals curse.
And just to pause and clarify for anyone listening who might be newer to the sports terminology, when the sources refer to white ball cricket, they are talking of the shorter, limited overs formats of the game. Like this 2020 tournament.
Exactly.
They use a white ball as opposed to the traditional 5-day marathon matches played with a red ball. The white ball formats are all about high speed and urgency.
A vital distinction. And in these high-speed tournaments, New Zealand has consistently reached the final hurdles over the last decade, only to stumble right at the finish line.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Precisely. They were hunting for their maiden men's T20 World Cup crown. What's fascinating here is how the Black Caps were drawing undeniable psychological momentum from their own counterparts.
Oh, the women's team.
Yes. Our sources note the New Zealand women's team achieved this exact maiden T20 World Cup victory just 2 years prior, in 2024.
I hear that narrative, and it makes for a great headline, sure, but I have to play devil's advocate for a moment here.
Fair enough.
Does a victory by the women's team 2 years prior actually translate to mechanical success for the men's team on the field, or is that just an inspiring media angle?
It is a fair question. Mechanics and execution win matches, not media narratives. However, the dossier points out that in sports, breaking a psychological ceiling really matters.
Okay, I can see that.
Seeing your own federation hold that specific trophy dismantles the internal belief that your nation is somehow cursed in these specific finals.
Fair point. It shows it can be done.
Yeah.
But speaking of psychological ceilings, there is a statistic in these reports that I found incredibly difficult to believe at first.
The head-to-head record.
Yes, going into this final, India had never beaten New Zealand in their 3 previous T20 World Cup meetings. A 0-3 historical record.
It completely subverts the conventional wisdom regarding India's typical dominance in this format.
Totally.
Mitchell Santner's squad knew that statistic. They knew that regardless of the 130,000 fans cheering for India, New Zealand had historically been their kryptonite on the World Cup stage.
So we have 2 teams laden with entirely different types of historical pressure, but their paths to this final were incredibly different too. Let's look at India's semi-final against England at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai.
Oh, that match.
If you look at the raw data, this was a game of sheer chaos. Nearly 500 total runs are scored in a single match.
Which is a complete anomaly. Historically, the immense pressure of a knockout match makes teams cautious.
Yeah, you tighten up.
Right. Batters take fewer risks. Bowlers bowl safer lines. This match completely discarded that historical precedent.
It was the definitive showcase of the Sanju Samson era. The analysis credits Samson as the architect of this chaos, scoring 89 runs off just 42 deliveries.
That strike rate is staggering.
Right. In a format where scoring 1 run per ball is considered a solid baseline, he was operating on a completely different frequency. Over 2 runs a ball, India set a total of 253 for 7.
And to put that into perspective,
Sources confirm that is the highest score ever recorded in a T20 World Cup knockout match.
a monumental total. But England responded with extraordinary aggression. Jacob Bethel scored a brilliant century for England. The pitch at Wankhede was clearly offering very little assistance to the bowlers. It became a pure shootout.
And this is where I want to challenge the prevailing narrative again. The dossier praises Jasprit Bumrah for his disciplined final over, noting that India held on to win by 7 runs.
Yes, the scorecard shows a win.
But consider this. If your bowling unit gives up nearly 250 runs, doesn't a historically tight margin like 7 runs actually expose a massive vulnerability? If I am New Zealand watching that tape, I am thinking India's bowlers can absolutely be cracked.
That is exactly how an opposing analyst would view it. You were looking for stress fractures. However, our tactical breakdown suggests a different internal takeaway for India.
Which is?
Winning by that agonizingly thin margin forced them to execute under the most extreme duress. Surviving that shootout erased the lingering doubts from their previous knockout failures. It proved their defensive mechanisms could hold even when the opponent was red hot.
So India proves they can walk the tightrope. But if India was walking a tightrope, New Zealand brought a wrecking ball to their side of the bracket. Let's examine their journey.
They had a brutal path.
They did. They had to survive the group of death, featuring brutally difficult matchups against South Africa and Afghanistan.
And surviving that group meant they earned a semifinal date with an unbeaten South African team in Kolkata.
And this match is where the Finn Allen phenomenon was officially etched into the history books. The preview document spends pages breaking down his performance alone.
As it should.
Finn Allen hit the fastest century in T20 World Cup history. He scored 100 runs in just 33 balls, and he remained unbeaten.
Let's break down the mechanics of what a 33-ball century actually requires. You cannot achieve that by simply swinging harder.
No, it's basically 3 runs every single time you touch the ball.
Exactly. The analysis shows Allen was anticipating the bowler's lengths before the ball was even released. He was moving around the crease, completely disrupting the traditional angles of attack. He effectively turned a highly structured sport into a game of pure, hyper-calculated reflex.
It is like watching someone find an exploit in a video game that bypasses all the intended rules. Combine his century with Tim Seifert's 58, and New Zealand chased down South Africa's target of 170 in just 12.5 overs.
The efficiency is staggering. They had more than 7 overs to spare against an unbeaten team.
Chasing a target like that in 12.5 overs doesn't just defeat an opponent, it demoralizes them. You are dismantling their entire defensive strategy in real time.
And our sources note the ripple effect of that specific victory. It sent a definitive warning to the rest of the tournament. New Zealand arrived in Ahmedabad not as the plucky, overachieving underdogs, but as a battle-tested juggernaut capable of vaporizing an unbeaten team.
Which brings us to the collision point, the final at the Narendra Modi Stadium. And before a single player even took a swing, a fascinating tactical chess match unfolded regarding the pitch and the coin toss.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, analyzing the ground conditions is crucial. The pitch report indicated a surface that would generally favor batters, but with critical nuances.
Right, the night games.
Exactly. The defining data points in our dossier came from the 4 night games played at this venue during the tournament.
The numbers from those 4 games create a brilliant paradox.
They certainly do. The average first inning score in those encounters was 192 runs. More importantly, the team that batted first won 75% of those matches.
Now, I have to ask about the mechanics of that 75% win rate. Conventional wisdom often suggests that playing at night introduces evening dew, making the ball wet, harder for bowlers to grip, and thus easier for the team batting second to chase a target.
That's the standard logic, yes.
So why was batting first such a dominant advantage here?
It is a great observation about the dew factor, which usually aids the chasing team. But the specific soil composition of the Ahmedabad pitch, detailed in the analysis, tells a different story.
Okay.
Under the lights, as the match progresses, this specific pitch tends to slow down and lose its bounce. The ball gets softer and doesn't come onto the bat as cleanly. Suddenly, trying to hit boundaries in the final overs becomes exponentially more difficult.
I see.
Add the sheer scoreboard pressure of chasing 190-plus runs in a final, and the statistical advantage tilts heavily toward the team setting the target.
And that creates a massive strategic clash. Our analysis highlights that India's historical comfort zone is batting first and applying that scoreboard pressure. But New Zealand, they had won 4 of their 5 matches in this tournament by chasing targets.
It forces a critical decision. If you are New Zealand and you win the toss, do you trust your established identity as an elite chasing team, or do you bow to the stadium statistics that heavily punish the team batting second?
That is a brutal choice.
It is like knowing a casino game is mathematically rigged against your play style, but it's the only way you know how to play.
Here's where it gets really interesting, looking at how these contrasting strategies manifested in the individual player matchups. The dossier breaks down the tactical battles beautifully. Let's start with the bowling strategies. India's reliance on spin versus New Zealand's pace and all-rounders.
India deployed their spin-twin combination to constrict the scoring during the middle phase of the game. That's Varun Chakravarthy and Kuldeep Yadav.
And Chakravarthy was having a massive tournament.
He entered the final as India's leading wicket-taker, boasting 13 scalps. However, the analysts pinpointed a notable vulnerability. He was taking wickets, but his economy rate was high.
And for context, a bowler's economy rate is simply the average number of runs they allow per 6-ball over. A high economy rate means you are bleeding runs, even if you are occasionally getting batters out.
Precisely. On the other end of that spin duo, Kuldeep Yadav presented a different threat. His historical metrics against New Zealand are superb, averaging a stellar 21.22 against them.
But New Zealand brought a compelling countermeasure in Rakeen Ravindra. The documents label him the tournament's surprise package.
He really was.
While his batting numbers were modest, he secured 11 wickets leading up to the final. And crucially, his economy rate was incredibly tight, just 6.88 runs per over. He wasn't just taking wickets, he was suffocating the batters.
Suffocation is the perfect word. Then you move to the top of the batting order. The analysis frames this as the battle of the openers versus the Yorkers.
Let's define the weapon first. Our sources heavily highlight the Yorker.
A devastating delivery.
For anyone unfamiliar, a Yorker is a delivery aimed directly at the batter's toes or the base of the stumps. Imagine trying to take a full, powerful golf swing, but the ball is sitting right on top of your own shoes. It jams you up. You cannot get any leverage to hit the ball into the air.
It is arguably the most difficult delivery to execute and the most difficult to hit. And India possessed the undisputed master of this delivery in Jasprit Bumrah.
He is basically a surgeon with the ball.
Absolutely. He entered the final with 10 crucial tournament wickets. His assignment was to neutralize the Finn Allen phenomenon. You have Allen riding the high of a 33-ball century and 289 tournament runs, facing the surgical precision of Bumrah aiming at his toes. Unstoppable force meeting an immovable object.
On the flip side, you had India's explosive opener, Abhishek Sharma. He proved his destructive capability earlier in the tournament, hammering a blistering 50 runs during a game where India scored 256 against Zimbabwe.
A massive total.
But in the final, he had to navigate the opening power play against New Zealand's Matt Henry, a bowler specifically designed to exploit early pitch conditions.
If the batters survive those opening exchanges, the game shifts to the middle overs. This is where the tactical maneuvering becomes highly complex. The dossier singles out India's Hardik Pandya as the ultimate balance shifter.
He brings so much to the table.
He contributed 8 wickets, added valuable runs, and crucially, possessed deep experience playing high-stakes IPL finals in this exact 130,000-seat cauldron.
You really cannot understate the value of knowing how the wind swirls in that specific stadium or how the crowd noise affects communication.
It changes how you play.
But New Zealand's strategy against Pandya's disruption was sheer, stubborn stability. They leaned heavily on Daryl Mitchell and Glenn Phillips to anchor the middle phase, ensuring they didn't collapse against India's spin.
Which inevitably leads us to the crucible of the format, the death overs.
The death overs. It sounds like a theatrical term, but as the analysis shows, it is a remarkably accurate description of the final few overs of a T20 match. It is pure, concentrated desperation. The batters are swinging at almost every delivery to maximize the final score, and the bowlers are operating with zero margin for error.
It is an environment where heroes and villains are made in the span of 3 minutes. For India, the responsibility of defending the boundary lines fell to Arshdeep Singh and Mohammad Siraj. The data highlights Arshdeep's clinical 3-wicket performance against Zimbabwe as proof of his late-game execution.
Their objective was to contain the raw pace fire of New Zealand's Lockie Ferguson and Jacob Duffy. Those two were tasked with bowling sheer heat to unsettle the Indian lower order, specifically targeting finishers like Rinku Singh and Axar Patel. Every single matchup we just discussed, from the opening coin toss to the final ball of the death overs, was a meticulously calculated risk.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from the specific player battles, the strike rates, and the boundary counts, what does a tournament of this magnitude actually signify for the global sporting landscape?
The concluding thoughts in the analysis point to a profound theme: evolution. This 2026 World Cup was a vivid indicator of how rapidly the sport's global footprint is expanding.
We saw 20 different nations participating. We witnessed debutantes like Italy stepping onto the world stage and testing themselves against established veterans.
Italy playing in a Cricket World Cup. It's fantastic.
It is. The macro narrative woven through all these statistics is that the massive skill gap that traditionally separated the legacy cricketing powerhouses from the emerging nations is closing faster than anyone predicted.
That is an incredibly compelling takeaway for you, whether you are a sports fan or just an observer of global cultural shifts. It proves that the barrier to entry for elite competition is shifting. The sport is becoming more accessible, more unpredictable, and ultimately more entertaining.
The final in Ahmedabad served as the ultimate showcase of that evolution. It demanded resilience, deep tactical foresight, and the ability to execute under suffocating pressure. Whether viewed as the ultimate redemption arc for the Indian side banishing the ghosts of 2023, or the historic breakthrough of the Black Caps attempting to shatter a decade-long curse, the events of March 8, 2026 transcend standard sports commentary.
It truly was a masterclass in human performance. As we wrap up our exploration of these documents, it is evident this tournament delivered on every front. We witnessed the Sanju Samson era redefine aggressive Indian batting. We watched the Finn Allen phenomenon rewrite the geometric possibilities of an opening batter. We analyzed record-shattering knockout scores, centuries constructed in 33 deliveries, and a tactical chess match played in front of a city-sized crowd.
The data we've unpacked today leaves us looking toward the future of the game. This raises an important question for you to think about.
Let's hear it.
With the Finn Allen phenomenon demonstrating that hyper-calculated, relentless aggression can successfully dismantle traditional bowling structures, and with emerging nations entering the fray with nothing to lose, are we witnessing the end of the classic build-an-innings strategy? If every team, regardless of their historical legacy, adopts this explosive video game-style template, how will the traditional powerhouses adapt their bowling attacks to survive the next evolution of the sport?
That is a phenomenal question for you to ponder. How do you defend against an opponent who refuses to acknowledge the speed limit? We want to thank you for spending your time with us today on this deep dive into the 2026 T20 World Cup Final. We hope you found the tactical breakdowns and historical context as fascinating as we did. Keep exploring the details, keep questioning the statistics, and we will catch you on our next deep dive.